Good afternoon. Karen Merrill here. I'm LCSW and RBH EAP provider. And the goal within the next 50 minutes or so is to take a look at the season that is upon us. Part of RBH's holiday tradition is to annually offer a training on how to manage holiday stress. So some of these may be new ideas for you, some of them may be reminders. Hopefully, it'll give you some ideas about how to have a more enjoyable and less stressful holiday season. So, Brenda Allen is with me, marketing and sales coordinator. And as is our practice, we'll be interspersing polling questions throughout the training, have some time at the end for questions and answers. And there's a wonderful kind of family holiday stress handout attached to this program that I'm going to kind of want to try to just target a little bit. So I'm going to get started. So here we are. We've got Thanksgiving behind us. I think last night was the last night of Hanukkah. But we've got Christmas and New Year's and Kwanzaa and all kinds of things left to go. We're in the midst of holiday music, decorations. Our environment is including now cues for us to shop and overindulge. So we're definitely in the holiday season. So, what does this make you think of this time of year? And probably started even around Thanksgiving. Do you think about celebrations that are coming? Do you think about the obligations that you have during this holiday season? Do you anticipate joyful events? Is there some kind of anxiety anticipation? What does it make you think of at this time of year? So to set more of a backdrop even for for holiday stress, during this time of year, our days are shorter, which means that it's darker earlier and darker later, can mean we have less time to get things accomplished and even less energy to get things accomplished. Oftentimes in the winter, we tend to feel like we want to hibernate. Um, the weather's colder, which sometimes can be harder to get things done because weather inhibits that. Malls are filled with beautiful decorations, so there's a lot of stimulus in our environment this time of year, whether we like it or not. Um, Music and food are ample around us. It's when offices start to have candy and cookies and all kinds of things. And then also, we think about environmental stress as a backdrop. This has been a year of dramatic events on both the world stage and in our own country. So, we're going to launch the first polling question around that. And I want to ask if, or reflect upon, does our current environmental stress affect your holiday outlook at all? And you can just answer yes or no, and we'll give you a couple minutes, and then Brenda will tell us how we did.
Karen, this is Brenda, and I'm having a little technical difficulty on my end, and I'm not able to launch the polling question at this time.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So if you just let us know um, if that changes, then
Okay.
we can even pick it up again. Yeah. So um, it's just kind of a way of acknowledging that, you know, we've got this underlie of a kind of environmental stress. And if you're feeling like this is a time when you really need to survive the holidays, that may be a little bit of it. So just kind of a another piece to put in there. All right. So, I think of the real definition of a holiday is free time, relaxing time, the opportunity to kind of recharge our batteries. And in fact, this holiday season, we oftentimes have less free time. There's so much to do. We may get less sleep because we're partying or baking or shopping. And oftentimes, our personal goals, our exercise, for example, gets put by the wayside in the face of other obligations. And that can affect us when we use that as a stress reducer. We can have less time to be alone, less time to kind of reflect on how we recharge ourselves and regroup, and less relaxed time with family and friends. And at the same time, as we mentioned about all those holiday goodies around us, and not to say that they're not delicious and some things we look forward to, but we do consume more sugar and fat, which can contribute to stress. Holiday parties oftentimes include alcohol, and there's a rebound to that. We can have financial worries about where the money's going to come from for gift giving and dinners and that sort of thing. And our lists of responsibilities multiply. So most of us lead pretty busy lives anyway, and then you have these other things that affect activities with your children, your family, or work. There's overall more to do. So, is this really a holiday? Are we really having fun? So, we're going to look at um, the sources of holiday stress and how we might approach these differently this year if we choose to. So, not all the time, but often, sources of holiday stress are driven by obligations that have to do with family, have to do with gift giving and thinking about what the best gifts are and purchasing. uh, the time that we have to get all these things accomplished, and where the money's going to come from. And if this was a leaner financial year than before, that may include uh, some other stress. And, it dawned on me as I was looking at this training that for many of us, our sources of stress, holiday stress, really are a result of the fullness of our lives, the fact that we have families that we interact with, that we have people we want to buy gifts for, and it takes up our time and it spends our money. Still, it's a result, a byproduct of all the things we really have in our life to be grateful for. So that's just kind of a sideline that occurred to me as I was thinking about my own holiday stress and looking at this training. So we may not be ready for it, but it's still a point of reflection is when we think about past holiday events, if we feel a sense of obligation or a sense of enjoyment. So we might consider whether we've enjoyed many past events or felt an obligation more and less enjoyment. So, Brenda, has that corrected, or do we need to just move on?
We're just going to have to move on. I'm sorry,
Okay,
Karen.
that's not a problem.
Thank you.
That's not a problem. It still raises kind of the issue. And she doesn't look terribly happy here. I mean, sometimes we look back on our holidays and the tasks from that year, and our heart might not have been in it. We think about how many of those things did we really enjoy and how many we felt obligated to do. So, and if it was a year with those feeling obligation and less enjoyment, we can kind of shape how we're anticipating this year with that backdrop. So if we can kind of try to say, this is a whole different year, we have a different opportunity, it gives us more of a chance to wipe some of those memories clean or experiences and think about it in a new light. Part of the challenge, certainly for me at this time of year, is all the commercialism that we're surrounded by. It really targets our vulnerability, and it can pressure people to buy gifts to make up for time, feeling guilty about time not spending with family or friends during the year. I can remember, the gift of the year among kids, among teenagers, what the kind of it gift was. Um, it can put a lot of pressure on us. And the sappy, sentimental commercials. If I see another commercial with the Lexus in the snow with the red bow on it, I mean, I don't know how many people get those kinds of Christmas gifts, but or all the jewelry commercials. It has a tendency to make us feel like we don't measure up and can shape kind of our expectations. So we have to be mindful that that's exactly what it is. It's commercialism. It's trying to sell things to people. But what we see in those commercials or listen to ads are promising unrealities, that this is a time for joy, good cheer, and optimism, that our families need to be together, that existing problems in families, those conflicts will disappear. Sometimes instead of that Rockwell painting, our holiday events with family can be more like home for the holidays. There are not a lot of those ideal families out there. We can hope or think that maybe all those previous faults and tensions are erased. But we mention this because if we're looking for that perfect picture, we can set ourselves up for disappointment and that we're not measuring up to probably just a fantasy picture for the most part anyway. So, other causes of holiday stress. Not everybody is surrounded by family and lots of invitations for parties and whatnot. People that are isolated anyway, that have many fewer resources, this kind of time of year can only underscore their sense of isolation and aloneness. So being aware that we all experience this season differently. Sometimes we get just too much family and even that anticipation of that. But it can be a very difficult time. In fact, there's a higher percentage of suicides during the holiday season than many other times during the year. So know that people are hurting in addition to going to parties and enjoying themselves. Holiday seasons are a time for reflection of what's gone on during our year, and sometimes we've suffered significant losses. It may be the first anniversary death of first anniversary date of the death of a loved one or parent or close friend. And it's hard. Those firsts are always hard. We may have suffered other emotional disappointments during the year, relationship breakups or job change or financial loss. So lots of things can interact with other events during the holiday time. And then it coincides with what we call seasonal affective disorder or the holiday blues. So just a quick word about that. What really is seasonal affective disorder? Well, literally, SAD, or what we also call winter depression, is a mood disorder, and it's associated with the episodes that are related to seasonal variations of light. So, if you think about less light during the day and it kind of impacting our circadian rhythm, and you think about kind of primitively what animals do, well, when there's more darkness, they go and hide, right? So it can be a time for certain people that are sensitive that they're more prone to depression. And sometimes it's superimposed on major depression. So it's a time, fraught with lots of different things that may be affecting our emotional state. So back to our kind of list of what we looked at that were the most common causes: family, gifts, time, money. 2 weeks before Christmas may think it's a little late to say make plans early, but if we haven't done it this year, then it might be something to think about next year. But if we kind of envision what we want our holiday to look like early on, it can help make us feel uh, less overwhelmed. The good news, so I always say this is the good news and the bad news. The good news is that we're in control of how we manage our stress through the season and keeping in mind how we enjoy it. The bad news is that we have to take that control and making a plan, and working that plan. So with families, one tip is to avoid long visits. We can only be on good behavior for so long. So, kind of being mindful that the longer we're around family members, sometimes the more tension occurs. If you travel to um, family events, family that lives out of town, if it's financially feasible, think about maybe staying in a hotel than with the family so you get breaks um, from all the intensity. And oftentimes, holidays and family get togethers have a tendency to trigger old hurts and old wounds. And holidays are not the time to think we're going to settle those arguments. So, being mindful of the fact that there's no reason to expect our family members are going to be much different than they were last year. So, to not set ourselves up for disappointment can help us set the stage. So, even really being bold and thinking about getting that family together at a different time of the year. That picture of, the holiday table, if you change that to an outdoor picnic during the summer months, it might go down a lot easier. Or strike out and be flexible with new traditions. You might decide to all volunteer together or attend a community event together. So you kind of change plans and start some new traditions. Also important is to involve children so that it's not just all about for them and what they're anticipating getting, but in involving children in plans and giving them a stake in the outcome and the activities. So we can't say too much about expectations having to do with family. This feeling that I must be with my family. Um, our home and family should be like Martha Stewart's. My kids should be happy and excited about Christmas. I always say, and I think to myself, when we hear words like must, should, or ought, it really sets us up for disappointment rather than what I want, what's realistic. Martha Stewart's career is making her house and table look good. You've got other careers that are worthy and important. And cutting yourself some slack about what you can provide for your friends and family at this time of year. And it's only good modeling for kids to give them realistic expectations. So just some words about that. More thoughts about expectations, feelings. I should feel happy, generous, and loving. Competition. What will people think if I don't put all the lights up in the neighborhood? There's some communities, neighborhoods where, boy, there's lots of different decorations, and I think there is some competition. But if you can, be brave and decide if you've got the time, you'll do it, you will. Otherwise, you can live with the fact that you choose not to. Financially, that feeling that you'll disappoint people if you don't spend a lot of money. And being, the life of the party, or feeling like if I don't eat and drink a lot, I'm not going to be one of the people at this party. So what's missing here is what we really want and what we feel most comfortable with. So trying to keep those things in mind during this stressful season. Holiday stress busters. Try to sit back and reassess and prioritize. Why do I feel so overwhelmed? Where is this actually coming from? Really kind of nail down what's going on with you at that moment, thinking what is stressing you out, and telling yourself and asking yourself what you can let go of. We can only divide the pie in different sections. We don't get a bigger pie. So knowing what we can take on and what we have to let go of. Delegating, getting your family involved, not thinking you have to take control of everything. And if what you're saying is, yeah, but if I don't do it myself, it won't get done right or the way I want it to. And that may be true, but is it worth the price for you to want to take it all on? So think about creating a job jar so that you put different obligations in this jar, have family members pick it, and divide the task that way. So the next question was just about budget. And if you have a budget, if you enter the season with a budget, yes or no. And we're going to talk about some myths around gift giving. But before, in terms of kind of the budgeting idea, or that the money's going to come from somewhere, I heard a very interesting thing last year, and that is not a small percentage of Americans are still paying off debts from the money they spent on last Christmas. So know that there is a lot of fantasy around this, that it's acceptable to overspend since it's once a year, that it's going to come from somewhere, that these gifts need to best what we gave last year. This is going to stress you out if you approach it like this. And that we need to get out our crystal ball and give a gift to everyone you expect to get one from. And when you add a name to your list, that it is carved in stone, depending on whether your job has changed, your neighborhood has changed, whatever, you still need to give them a gift thereafter. And you have to think about what they're going to be spending so that the value is the same and better again than last year. And even more myths If you give a gift to one person in one category, for example, a coworker or a neighbor, you have to give a gift to everyone in that category of similar values. So you can see how this gets crazy. I mean, where do you stop with coworkers? Your immediate work group or the whole department? How about in your neighborhood? Women should give gifts to their close women friends, and men should not give gifts to their male friends unless it contains alcohol. So that's, kind of that gender thinking that, it's exhausting even thinking of all these rules. So no, you don't have to go by these rules. You can make your own and not play the game. Do it your own way. Wouldn't that be liberating? Time, the time it takes. Shopping early, shopping with purpose, making a list, um, refusing invitations that will cause you a lot of stress for you, your children, and other family members in trying to cover all those bases. Refuse to give up time for yourself, even if it's a small amount of time, whether that's for exercising, meditation, deep breathing, that you don't relinquish your self care during this time of year. Sharing tasks and responsibilities and exercising your no voice so that you can set some boundaries along the way. Money. So, how to budget to avoid a financial hangover. Think of alternative ways to give gifts. You could make things and give them jam or um, things that craft kind of gifts, baked goods made with your family members. Uh, Share the expense of holiday meals. Do activities with family and friends that cost little or no money, like volunteering. A family I know realized that they had participated in the excess of gift giving year after year in buying and giving things that people really didn't want or use. And so they decided instead to select a charity to donate to. So the people, instead of giving a gift to the other, would put their favorite charity in a jar, and then other family members would pick it, and it was much more heartwarming and meaningful to them. Also, remember the reason for the season, whatever that may be for you. And talking to children about the pressures they may feel from their peers and that help them understand that they're not like everybody else and they can't expect to get what everybody else gets, I think is really good modeling for kids. Set realistic goals. Try to pace yourself, even set a timeline of what you want to get accomplished by certain times. Organize your time, make a list, prioritize what comes first. Again, say no. Remember that this is just one day that we may be getting all stressed out about. And set a real budget and stick to it. Like, how much can I use from income? How much am I willing to go into debt around? How much can I spend on gifts, entertainment, so you don't have that, what we call that financial hangover after the holidays? Less surprises when we're planful about it. So as we kind of move forward towards the end of the training, thinking about 5 good steps to coping with stress. And really, this is good for holidays or any time of year, and are maybe reminders to all of us. First is to making a commitment to deal with stress in a positive light. And if that means, again, that you need to scrap the old activities and create new ones, or just bring a different outlook, but still seeing stress, trying to see it in a positive light and committing to it, you're halfway there. Once we decide, it makes a difference. If we focus on what part of this season we really enjoy, and that's what we're going to take away from this and hold in our memory. So everyone has heard breathing exercises, the benefits of meditation. A sample method is to close your eyes, listen to your breath, breathe deeply, quietly repeat one word to yourself over and over, hear yourself without speaking, and work up to 15 minutes or so. You don't need to start there if this is a new practice for you. Start with 4 or 5 minutes and work up. But it can absolutely recharge you. And then gradually you reawaken yourself and you feel less stress and more renewed. So it's really unlikely that we're going to celebrate the holidays without indulging in those goodies we look forward to. Part of that are some childhood memories, and I think about the things that my mother baked and what the holidays meant to me in that way. And I'm not willing to give that up. But the key really is to balance it with healthy foods and in taking control. So watch that: white sugar, white flour, uh, alcohol, and caffeine. Processed foods, try to eat as much, natural, prepared that you prepare yourself. Watch those, bad fats that can, end up making us feel worse than if we hadn't had them. And consume more raw vegetables, cooked vegetables, fruits, complex carbs, whole grains. Drink lots and lots of water. Water's good for stress anytime, but during the holidays, when we're also consuming things that hopefully our diet doesn't contain all through the year, is important to remember. And making sure you get enough of those important vitamins, A, B, C, E, in food form or supplement form, is important to remember. It just kind of protects our system a little bit from what we're choosing to indulge in on a short-term basis. So exercise, can't beat exercise. Helps the body cope with the mental and physical effects of stress. Anytime, bleeds off stress, raises serotonin, that feel good hormone. So if you already exercise, try to commit yourself again to not letting holiday tasks get in the way. And if you're starting a plan, if you're choosing to start a plan, start it slow and be realistic about your goals, is important. So our last polling question, and I don't expect a tally, but I think it's really important if we ask ourselves, do we want to spend our time and energy on what we should do, or do we want to spend our time and energy on what we want to do? Now, it's very possible that what you want to do is also what you believe you should do, and that's fine. But I think the idea about this is that you're choosing it and that you don't feel like it's, being put on you. So that last piece is about attitude. We talk a lot about negative versus positive self-talk and that kind of tape that plays in our head, which it does, and challenging ourselves to look on the bright side. Um, when those musts and shoulds come to mind, ask yourself what you want to do and what you'd like to do. Gratefulness exercise. First thing in the morning, last thing at night, think of 5 things you're grateful for. Write them down. Research tells us this makes us happier people. Stick with that gratefulness exercise throughout the year. And I would say to also in that, think about how you want to remember this holiday season, what you want to take into next year as the memories for this year. So the true meaning of the holidays can be different for many, many of us. For some, it's a religious holiday. For others, it's about enjoying family, making, baking, and enjoying treats that are fraught with childhood memories, celebrating, helping others, wanting to reach out to the community, being active in the community. Sometimes, depending on the kind of year we've had, we might want to reflect quietly. We might want to get on a plane and go to somewhere else that takes us away from a holiday stressful environment. It's all up to you if you can choose to do that. So we ask that you think about this holiday contract, that this year you're going to start doing such and such. You're going to stop doing things that have interfered, and you're going to continue the wonderful traditions that have been important to you before. Above all, take time for you and your family to create the holiday that works for you. So before we get to the questions, I just want, if you could pull up that handout. Let's see, I think I might be able to do this. Yeah, here it is. If you don't have it in front of you, here is this one. So this talks about the how to combat holiday families get-togethers and points to the fact that it can be a time that reopens childhood wounds and can create some new sore events. So a self-care plan, deciding how long you want to interact with family members, setting boundaries around them. Practice answers to triggers. This is a good one. You can bet that topics you won't want to come up will. So if your cousin's still angry that you inherited your grandmother's antique picture, think ahead to how you'll handle it. One way is to redirect it, change the subject. You can also tell your cousin that you don't want to discuss the issue at this time and change the subject. Letting go of resentment. Decide what grievances you'll let go of, even for the day. Sometimes being around family requires us to forget past issues and enjoy everyone in spite of them. A personal story, like many of us, I have some family conflict. And one year I was on the plane flying from Portland to California. And I decided that I was going to make this event different and not react to triggers, etc. So I had a wonderful handout on forgiveness and letting go. And I read it over and over again on the flight. And by the time I landed and participated in the family events, I realized that those people around me weren't going to change. And I was only going to get unhappy if I expected them to be any different than they were. And it was really helpful. And holidays have been a lot better since that time. So it really is about practicing mindfulness. The fact that we really have only right now and not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future can help and can make you a happier person in general. So knowing that. And have a lifeline, if you have a good friend that you can connect with during stressful times can be really helpful. Even hearing a friendly voice can help sort out your feelings when you're triggered. And remember, boy, this is not an easy time for a lot of people. Others are hurting too. You're not the only one feeling stressed or getting triggered. It's a part of lots and lots of family dynamics. So be thoughtful if another family member gets upset or doesn't live up to your expectations. Keep some perspective and you'll stay on top of your own emotional state. Set your sights on what you enjoy. Have something to look forward to. What part of it do you enjoy? Even again, if it's when you think about, I did this the best I could, and I can relax now and let go. And remember too that the EAP is always here for you. And during the stressful times of holidays or any other time of the year, reach out for this wonderful benefit that allows you to talk to a counselor free, confidentially. It's a wonderful benefit. So that's all I have. Now, Brenda, are we going to be able to see if anybody has questions?
Karen, unfortunately, I'm still having technical difficulties,
Okay.
and I'm not able to open the questions panel.
Okay. So
we can follow up with questions through email following the presentation.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So if anybody has a burning question that they'd like me to respond to that felt like it didn't get addressed, shoot them over to Brenda and she'll forward them to me and I'll be happy to respond. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. I wish you the remainder of a peaceful and enjoyable holiday season. Thanks so much. Bye for now.